obviously private credit, private equity, et cetera. Seems like everyone is looking for a way in. Do you see a world where we could put those private assets into ETFs? Is that in the future?
I hope so. I don't know if it's in the, I don't think it's in the very near term future, but I have given a lot of thought, we've given a lot of thought to what is the extension of our ETF and indexing capabilities that we've built into private markets. Again, going back to this theme, and it's going to be a constant theme, particularly given the correlation of, traditional risk assets in the last couple of years, or what are the portfolio diversifiers? And private markets are increasingly going to be viewed as an important portfolio diversifier. So how we actually make private markets accessible through ETFs and index is incredibly interesting, and I'm happy to talk about it more.
So I'm of the thought that you can't ETFize private assets. A lot of people have tried to do like, oh, here's some microcaps because they are like private equity, but they can't actually do it. What I think might happen, and you guys are into this, is tokenization. I think tokenization is looked at as potentially a big deal. I think it's going to be, or should be used more for stuff that is not ETFizable. Could you tokenize private assets and even beyond, things like farmland, artwork, things that are harder to get for the average retail investor?
So potentially, yes. Look, I think that this is a three-step process that actually does begin with indexing. Step number one is, how do we create indexes? Step number two, and sometimes people forget this, it's not enough to just create an index, which is a financial calculation. How do you ensure you can turn the index into an investable portfolio? That's step two. And step three is, how do you deliver that to an investor? And in private markets, we have three kind of key obstacles to work with. Number one is data, like where is the data around just key investment characteristics. Private deals are generally, bilaterally highly negotiated deals. So where do we get the data on the investments and the investment characteristics? Issue number two is valuation clarity, like lagging valuations. With what time do how often can you actually get price information? And step number three is secondary market liquidity. You need to check all of those boxes, Eric, to deliver ETFs. You don't need to check all three to start delivering investable indexes. But I think to check all three, it is possible that tokenization can address particularly the needs to share data and create secondary market liquidity.
So I know you can't talk too much about the potential pipeline. You can't talk too much about pending deals. But when I think about private assets coming into the ETF world, I kind of think of crypto ETFs, because you had futures first, and then eventually we got to spot. And thinking about it, I mean, could this follow a similar track where maybe you have an index of private assets and you do swaps on top of that to put that into an ETF portfolio to sort of mimic that? Or do you think, again, that it's possible that private assets could actually be in ETFs?
That's a good question about the role the derivatives market might play in the interim. Futures-based crypto ETFs didn't deliver that well for investors. So it might be that that's the path of least resistance for ecosystem adoption. I'm not sure that that will be ultimately what meets investor demand the most. I think that investors are interested in having private markets in their portfolios. And actually, even before crypto, I'd look at the trajectory of bond ETFs and how bonds, and diversified portfolios of bonds, which, now is more relevant than ever before, because fixed income, now that we are in a generation of actual inflation and interest rates, is going to have a much bigger role in a much broader set of investor portfolios. ETFs are core to how investors look to build their portfolios. So I definitely think that the ETF-like wrapper for private assets could be very important to investors in the future.